How do Linux permissions make my own files inaccessible? Imagine creating a file and suddenly finding you cannot open it. It feels strange, right? That's often caused by how Linux permissions are set up. Let's explore how these permissions work and why they might block your access even if you own the file. Every file and folder in Linux has an owner, usually the user who created it, and a group, which is a collection of users. Permissions are divided into 3 types: read, write, and execute. Read lets you see the contents, write allows changes, and execute runs the file or enters the folder. These permissions are assigned separately for the owner, the group, and everyone else called others. When you try to access a file, Linux checks your status. First, it sees if you are the owner. If yes, it applies the owner permissions. If not, it checks if you belong to the group that owns the file. If you do, it applies group permissions. If neither, it looks at the permissions for others. Sometimes, even if you are the owner, you might not be able to open your own file. This can happen if the owner permissions do not include read access. For example, if the permissions are set to only allow writing, you can change the file but cannot see what's inside. It's rare but possible if permissions are changed manually or by a script. Another common situation is when the file is owned by someone else. If you are not in the group that owns the file and the permissions for others do not give you access, you cannot read, write, or execute that file. This is because Linux does not automatically give you access just because you created the file. Ownership can be transferred only by the system administrator, also called root. So, if someone else takes ownership of your file, your access might be revoked unless permissions are adjusted. Directory permissions also play a big role. To access a file inside a folder, you need execute permission on that folder. Without it, you cannot open or even list the files inside, no matter what the file permissions are. For example, if a directory has permissions like DriveX, only the owner can see or access the files inside. Others will be blocked, even if the files themselves are open to everyone. Special permission bits can change how access works too. The setGid bit on a directory makes new files inherit the group of the directory. If you are not part of that group, you might not be able to access files created by others. Managing permissions is straightforward with commands like chmod, which changes permissions, chown, which changes ownership, and chgrp, which changes group ownership. To see your current groups, you can use the id command. Linux permissions are more detailed than those in Windows or macOS, especially in shared or server environments. They give you fine control over who can do what with your files. But this flexibility can also cause confusion or accidental lockouts if permissions are set incorrectly. In summary, your own files can become inaccessible if permissions are changed to restrict your access, if ownership is transferred to someone else, or if directory permissions block entry. Understanding how ownership and permissions work helps you keep control of your files and fix access issues quickly. This system is a key part of Linux's security and flexibility, making it different from other operating systems that use different methods to manage file access.